Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is episode 102. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I hope that you've been enjoying tuning in more often because we've been cranking out episodes much more routinely, and we intend on continuing to do that.
I think it's the closet. I think it's the closet.
What about the closet, Danny?
It's a formal setting. It removes us from our regular office. I think the closet was key, she says from atop her pile of laundry.
You always said you wanted to live in a smaller space. You could live in the closet. I'll take the rest of the house.
You're right. I do love those tiny spaces.
You are killing me, and this episode is just getting started. Speaking about smaller spaces, I can't wait to be crunched next to you and someone else on our way in flight to Vegas, actually.
Okay, pause.
Go ahead. I got you, didn't I?
1, that was a stretch of a transition. 2, we are not going to Vegas. We are going to Los Angeles. That was a double whammy. Wowza. Okay, so before we start these episodes, I always say, hey, Giacomo, what can we chit-chat about before we get started? And he's like, I don't like to plan it. I don't want to think about it. And then he gives you the entire wrong information. It's hilarious to me.
I think so.
We're going to Los Angeles. We will be at the Los Angeles Fit Expo, January 14th and 15th. I think it's just at the LA Convention Center, right?
Right.
I think so. Should be a lot of fun. Vegan to me, Giacomo, Robert, Corinne, Alex Hayes, I think, is going to be there. Probably Bill Muir, a.k.a. Sergeant Vegan, will be at the Vegan Strong booth talking to people about a plant-based diet, giving cooking demos, lectures. Be very cool to see some of you guys there.
And there are typically surprise guests because it's kind of like a who's who. People come out of the woodworks for events like these. So
oh yeah, John Lewis is going to be there. Badass Vegan.
Who'll show up.
He won't be at I'm sure he'll be at our booth at some point, but he will be there. Tori Washington is usually there. Natalie Matthews and George Matthews, I guarantee that they will come out for it because they live there. Jenny Harrison.
Scott, I know they're about to have a baby, but
Julie Reyes. There'll be a lot of cool people there. You should come. You should come.
Totally.
Please come. Please come or I'll stand there and be bored and have no one to talk to.
Yeah, plus we're doing food demos, we're speaking, there'll be plenty of stuff to share even outside of the booth. And, well, hey, here's a kind of cool little teaser for you. Abbott's Butcher, I've yet to try their stuff. I can't find it out here. But they wanted to table with us, so we're like, yeah, come on through. They're going to be demoing their vegan meats, and it's a really cool company from what I've learned about them so far, and I'm genuinely looking forward to trying out their stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. And I'm not sure exactly what day this podcast is going live, but if it's before the 10th, which I think we might be squeaking in just before the 10th here, we do have the live goal setting workshop coming up still. You can register for it in the show notes. If the link's not there, this did not come out before the 10th, but I would love to have you guys there if it is before the 10th. Nailed it. All right, what are we talking about today, Giacomo?
Non-aesthetic goals. This is going to be hard for us because we are physique specialists.
Okay, before we dive in, poll to the audience. Is it aesthetic goals or aesthetic goals?
You're upsetting me. Stop.
I say aesthetic, like aesthetic.
Don't thaw at me, please.
Giacomo says aesthetic
Tick.
goals.
Aesthetic.
Let's ask Google.
Google doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay.
Hang on. We're going to get it.
We're going to get it.
Aesthetic.
I hear the TH. The TH is there, and it's in the pronunciation.
Google lies.
Aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
Oh, whatever, Google.
So, Giacomo and every other person I've ever heard say aesthetic, it's aesthetic.
So, non-aesthetic goals.
Aesthetic.
I don't even know what's happening right now. All that I know is we're not focused on physique, which is easier said than done. Because there should be no if you can't be vain here, then where can you be vain? You know, you want to work on your body image. You want your not only to work on how you feel about your body, you want to improve your body. But when you get too hung up on aesthetic goals, you wind up losing sight of what you need to do to improve your aesthetics, which is why the non-physique based goals are actually really important because they keep you focused and making better decisions for yourself long term.
Yeah, I mean, I love aesthetic goals. 90% of the people who come to us, those are their primary goals. It says, what are your primary goals? List your top 3 goals in order. And it's like, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to have a 26-inch waist. I want to build muscle. Like, those are kind of 3 separate aesthetic goals, and we can do it. Like, I know we can do it. I have no question about that. But I just think, like, after a while of reading these goals over and over and over and over, and sometimes knowing, not our clients, but knowing people who are setting the same aesthetic goal over and over and over, I'm like, aren't you bored? Like, aren't you a little bit bored with that goal? And I know that when I only focus on aesthetics, training is less fun to me, you know, because aesthetic change, physical transformation happens kind of slow. Some of them happen very, very slowly. So it can be hard to stay really motivated with your actual training when that's all you're focused on. And I also feel like when all you're focused on is changing the way that you look, it's almost like you wake up every morning like mentally playing Russian roulette with what your mood is going to be that day based on like what the scale tells you or how your pants fit that day. If that's the only thing you're focused on, you know, the scale can literally dictate your mood for the rest of the day. And that's not great.
Well, there is that fear that if you move away from that too much, that you won't be working toward your goal. But I also think it's a necessary thing to do in order to, and I hate to say this ad nauseum, but it is kind of our shtick. It is our thing to find balance in your life, honestly. Because if you do that, you'll be able to take anything to the extreme and to become an expert at damn near anything. In my opinion, you can do that. You can do that, but you can only do that when you don't do it at the expense of having dire consequences in every other area of your life. Because eventually, if that's the route you take, the thing you're trying to be an expert at or do to the extreme, you won't be able to do it because you'll have just too many other things in your life that you blew up because you didn't find a way to focus on balancing yourself out. So the non-aesthetic goals are really helpful for keeping you mentally healthy and enjoying the process while you continue to work towards whatever it is you want to work towards. And who knows, you may find other things that you're interested in aside from the one thing that's a main priority to you fitness-wise.
That's true. That's true. The other thing I think is like, and this might be ironic coming from a bodybuilder, but I think that when you place too much weight just on what you look like, your body image suffers long term. Like if that is the only thing that you're thinking about, and the reason I say it's ironic is because I've often talked about how bodybuilding as a whole, both the gaining and shredding phases of bodybuilding have actually improved my body image because I appreciate my thicker, less lean body more than I ever did before going through that. But I do think part of that is because regardless of whether I'm gaining or losing or bulking or cutting or building or shredding or however you want to look at it, I always have other goals that have nothing to do with the way I look. So if I'm finding that the way that I look is like not thrilling me at the moment, I lean into one of those other goals and it really helps me focus and keep going when maybe otherwise I'd be feeling a little bit down.
Give us an example of another goal.
Oh, well, I came with a list of... I always have a list. I came with a list of other possible goals because a lot of times when I say to people, hey, why don't we why don't we try to set a strength goal? Because a lot of times when people switch from a shredding phase to a gaining phase, they're still so used to focusing on what they look like that now they're focusing on what they look like and they don't like it. So I'm like, okay, let's find a different goal that we can focus on. So the other goal of building muscle is still happening. Like, that is still going on, but we're focusing on something else to complete it better, if that makes sense. So I have a list of types of goals and then specific goals. And every single individual is going to want a different goal, right? So just because I'm listing these doesn't mean I think everybody should make these their goals. They're just mostly meant to spark ideas of different things you could focus on that could be kind of fun, maybe open up some new doors, just some ideas. So basically, I rattle off the list and Giacomo comments on it, more or less, is how we do this, right?
Or I'm like 2 or 3 steps ahead and you're like, wait.
So the first type of goal that I have here is improving your form on something. So if there's an exercise that you think you're not doing super well, like you're doing it, you've been doing it, but then you watch the videos and you're like, is that right? Could I do this better? Just focusing on your form for that particular exercise or multiple exercises can be a good goal. So like if you have not ever actually squatted to parallel, working on taking that squat all the way to parallel is a great goal.
I'm going to add to the conversation here when it comes to how to work on your form, because I think that the very first place people gravitate toward is watching themselves in the mirror because they can see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
2 problems with that. Problem number 1 is that you cannot fully focus on yourself because you're also focused on trying to move your body to move the weight, right? You're focused on the movement, so you can't pay attention to what you're doing. Problem number 2 is when you look at that mirror, your your cervical spine and your neck are no longer in neutral alignment with the rest of your spine, which means you're training with poor posture, which means you're probably going to eventually put a strain on like the top third of your spine, which is not good. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. As it is, we're like already like hunched over on technology. You don't want to train like that. You want to make those muscles stronger. Video analysis or working with someone in person.
Video yourself. I would say video yourself doing the lifts. The key, though, one of the keys, because I see this in so many form videos, is people looking at themselves in the video. So basically doing exactly what you just said about the mirror, but they're looking at their camera to make sure, like, I don't know, the camera didn't fall over or they're still in the frame. Like, I understand why they're doing it, but don't do it, please. It's very dangerous. Just that little turning of your neck, not good for you. You can really hurt. One time I was setting up for a bench press. I wasn't even benching yet. I was just setting up for it, and I thought I heard someone call my name, Danny, and I turned my head to look. Done for. Back out 4 days. Don't do it. But, improving form on, like I said, squatting to parallel, if you've never done that, improving your squat depth, deadlifting with a flatter back. A lot of this stuff you don't even know you're doing right or wrong until you film it, actually. So a lot of times something can feel right, and then you film it, and you're like, ooh, that looks a little uglier than I thought it did.
Touching your chest on a bench press. Shouldn't have to say that, but it's true. You know who you are. Present company included. Oh my gosh, I was a culprit of this for years. Touching your chest on a bench press, keeping your elbows tucked in when you bench.
Getting a full range of motion on things like your overhead press or your rows. Not bouncing stuff when you're bicep curling. So many different little tiny tweaks can take the exact same weight. Like you can lift the exact same weight, but if you get better at lifting it, you just increase the effectiveness of your workouts by a lot. So very simple, non-aesthetic goal, working on your form. It's a great one. The next one might seem a little bit obvious, and this is probably what we usually, this is where I lean first when I'm working with people, is increasing your strength. Rather than focusing on, are my bicep measurements growing, focusing on, Am I lifting more weight on my upper body days? Or am I getting more reps? So you can get really specific with this because progressive overload should always be a goal. Getting stronger or adding more reps, that should be a goal no matter what, forever. But you can get really specific with strength goals. So something like picking actual goals of weights that you want to lift. So like maybe squatting over your body weight or deadlifting twice your body weight or hitting a certain number of push-ups, like clean, well done push-ups, or doing your first pull-up. Those are all strength goals that give you something to work towards. And, don't forget, strength is a skill. So these are skill-based goals that give you something else to focus on. And when you work towards these things, what happens as a byproduct? You build muscle. You look better.
Have you guys heard of the Vegan Cruise? If not, we want to tell you about it because we are so excited to be presenters on the 2023 cruise, and we would love to see you guys there. So the Vegan Cruise is exactly what it sounds like and so much more. It's a cruise from March 17th to March 24th that leaves from Miami and will be visiting Belize, Honduras, Costa Maya, and the Bahamas on the beautiful MSC Divinia. It is so cool to wake up in a new country every day of the trip, seriously. But as if that wasn't enough, one of the biggest drawbacks of most cruises is that there's nothing vegan to eat. I had a client actually go on a cruise recently, and she said she was shocked at how little she could eat, and for that price, it just was not worth it for her. But that's not a problem on this cruise because all 3 meals are fully catered, vegan, and made by gourmet chefs. You will never be hungry. There are also get-togethers like ice cream socials and pizza parties out by the pool. Very fun. And to top all of that off, the cruise is absolutely loaded with some of the biggest leaders in the vegan movement giving lectures, presentations, and classes. Folks like Dr. Greger, Dr. Barnard, Dr. Clapper, Robert Cheek, Juliana Hever, and so many more, and of course, us. We will be hosting exercise classes and giving presentations on plant-based fitness. And of course, we would very much love to spend time with any of our listeners who come out. So if you're interested, click the link in the show notes to book your spot because it always sells out. And mention vegan proteins when you book and you'll get a $50 onboarding credit at the vegan bookstore. We look forward to vacationing with you guys.
We're not saying aesthetic goals don't matter, don't care about how you look. Again, we both bodybuild, so I understand for many reasons why these things are important to people. So we're not saying, oh, don't even do that. Like, here are some ways to not focus on that so much, accomplish other things, and also as a byproduct, probably look closer to the way that you're trying to anyway.
The core stuff, ab roller is big. Being able to do a complete ab roller from your knees and then eventually standing up, that one is really hard. And then the other one that was on the top of mind, the planks. You can X amount of minutes in a plank, for example. So yeah, all kinds of goals like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to, strict overhead press a certain amount of weight. Before I hurt my elbows, I used to be able, I think the most I ever did was 12 pull-ups without stopping. Not kipping, strict pull-ups. And now, because of my elbows, I would love to get back there again. So I can only do a couple now before my elbows are what are you doing? Please stop.
Trying to think of
those are goals.
What to Google for strength standards if you want hard standards of what's novice, intermediate, and expert.
Just Google that.
Strength standards.
Novice, beginner, intermediate, advanced, lifter weights. And it will come up with charts for men and women that weigh different things and are different ages, and it'll give you an idea of where you are. So maybe a goal is just to move up into the next category on a particular lift.
And do remember, you're going to be naturally stronger and weaker at certain lifts depending on your biomechanics. Some people are just good benchers and bad squatters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes making that goal the thing that you're the worst at, bringing that up, in my opinion, that's motivating and a nice thing to work toward.
Yeah. Another type of goal is increasing flexibility. But I don't like just saying, so so far I've said like improving form, increasing strength, increasing flexibility. Those aren't the actual goals, okay? If you put that on your New Year's resolution, increase flexibility or increase strength, those are super vague. You're not gonna necessarily know when you hit that goal. I think the goal itself needs to be more specific, and you should probably try to put some kind of a timeline on it as well. But some specific flexibility goals would be bend over and touch your hands flat to the floor, or to be able to do a front split, or to be able to like do that hand grab thing behind your back where one arm's up and one arm is down in both directions. Like things like that, working towards those things. Again, these don't inherently make you leaner or stronger or anything like that, but they will likely aid you in recovery and injury prevention, which is going to increase your longevity at the gym. And by longevity, I don't mean you'll be able to work out for a longer session. I mean for more years of your life, the more flexibility that you have.
Did you mention that you take your muscles through a greater range of motion so you're able to grow more muscle?
Yeah, if you have decent flexibility, you know, one tight muscle won't suddenly be the limiting factor for a certain exercise. You'll be able to get better range of motion. Mm-hmm. So there's so many reasons why these are good goals. So I would suggest some of those as well. My next type of goal is doing something totally new, whether that's a new skill or a new thing that you want to try out. So some examples that I wrote down were like being able to do a handstand. That's a huge goal for a lot of people. It was a big goal for me once too, and then I kind of gave up on it. I did have fun doing it.
Run a 5K?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you could do that. If you've not done it before, I did do that in 2022. I had never done a race before, so I ran a 5K.
Get on your bicycle for an hour?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one.
Have you ever done that before? That's what I'm talking about. Something you've never done before.
Yes.
Try something totally new, or try to accomplish something totally new, like a back bend or a handstand or a dragon flag or like a front lever or back lever with calisthenic stuff, or something totally new, like running a 5K or going roller skating or like for exercise.
Whatever. Be able to rally back and forth with somebody on a tennis court for 20 hits. I mean, you could set all kinds of goals with all kinds of things.
And this is going to be super, super specific to you and what you like and what like calls to you. You know, if Giacomo said, oh, you should set a goal of doing a tennis match, I would be like, no, thank you. That does nothing for me. He loves it. But learning how to like roller skate backwards and do some roller skating tricks, that sounds super fun to me.
Yeah.
So that is a fun goal for me. That's just fun and branches out of just the gym, right? It gives you something else to focus on that may or may not have carryover to your other goals, depending on what it is.
Exactly.
You know, but trying something physically totally new, I think, is really fun. And as lifters who want to build muscle and get leaner and look better and blah, 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 we can get really, really locked in to the very short list of things that we know work. Like, none of this is new, guys. We know what builds muscle. We know what gets you leaner. The same 20 exercises that you have been working for 50 years, guess what? Those are the exercises. Lift heavier all the time, do cardio, eat well. It works. That's how you do it. But, you know, it can get a little bit stale. It can kind of put you in a box a little bit. And that's fine if that's where you want to be. But, you know, sometimes you just want to try something new. Spice it up. Take a dance class. I don't care. Just try something new.
Hey, listeners. We hope you've been enjoying this episode, and we appreciate your love of all things vegan fitness. For those of you who want even more support on your vegan fitness journey, check out our Muscles by Brussels community and become a member. By joining the team, you are one of our exclusive VIPs. As a member, you'll find over 200 macro-friendly, high-protein recipes that can meet any of your meal planning needs. You'll also receive training programs that update monthly. This training has progressive overload built into it, so you can be sure if you're following the program, you are making progress. All of this and more is located inside our Vegan Proteins members-only app. As a Muscles by Brussels member, you'll unlock bonus courses, challenges, and more, every month. You'll also be invited to our live Zoom video calls, which happen 2 times a month. And they're absolute gold to those who show up. And if you can't make the calls, don't worry. You have the opportunity to email us whenever you want. You'll receive a video response to all of your questions from one of the coaches here at Vegan Proteins every time you message us. Members also receive 40% off many of our other services. And of course, our private community of like-minded individuals is like no other. Best of all, you can try this membership out for a full month at no cost to you with this special offer for our listeners only, because we appreciate and want to fully support you. Use the link in our show notes to sign up for your free trial today. We hope to see you on our next live coaching call.
My next type of goal is to finish in a certain amount of time. Do X in a certain amount of time. So when I ran my 5K, I wanted to do it under 35 minutes. Don't laugh, guys. I am not a runner. And I did, by the way, did it in 32 minutes. Hated it. Wanted to die, but I did it. Hike a certain mountain in under this much time. Finish a marathon in under 4 hours. Whatever it is, pick a goal and then set a specific time for it. It could be doing one of those CrossFit workouts, like doing the Murph in X amount of time. Those are very specific goals, right? You know if you reach that goal or not.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is spending X amount of time doing something. So maybe you want to spend a certain number of minutes over the course of the year stretching, or you want to do a certain number of yoga sessions in the year. I have a client right now. She's awesome. I forget the number, but yeah, it's something like she wants to do 100 yoga sessions by the end of the year. So she's got to do it like almost every 3 days.
I get a kick out of how you get obsessed with this, actually. Sometimes I look and I'm like, well, but it's working for her. But it's true. It does work. Sometimes it's like you can, from the outside looking in, it can seem a little silly. Or even when you think in yourself, like, does this matter? Like if I hit that number, or if I'm if I'm doing crazy things to hit my amount of reps or whatever it is, like it's kind of stupid. But in reality, if it gets you to do the thing, then it's worth going after. It's worth finding a way to accomplish it. And it's validating. It's nice to set a goal and to accomplish it. Honestly, I think that the psychological component of that is just as, if not even more important than the amount of minutes that you put into something. In all honesty, you prove to yourself that like you could feel good about something and accomplish something.
I mean, you said I was going to cut you off and explain why it's important and why it's not silly, but you kind of came back around to it. Like, that's it. The important thing about setting a goal, it's not doing 100 yoga sessions. Like, if you got 99 yoga sessions, that's still amazing. But setting a goal and achieving that goal sends a message to yourself that says, I am a person who does what I say I'm going to do. And every time you say you're going to do something and you do it the way you said you were going to do it, you do it in the time frame that you set out, you build confidence in yourself. That is how you build confidence. Like, so many people say, oh, I just want more confidence. I want more confidence. The way that I have found to build confidence is to be somebody who does exactly what I say I'm going to do. And anytime I don't, the opposite is also true. Anytime you say, oh, I'm going to do this on this day, and you don't, you are just sitting there with a little ice pick, just picking away at your own self-confidence, because you're literally teaching yourself, like, I can't even trust myself. I can't even believe myself when I say I'm going to do that. Like, why would anybody else believe me? Why would anybody else believe in me? Set the goal. Do the goal. That's also why I think you need to set goals that are achievable. If you set it so high that you can't possibly achieve it, that's just like a double whammy.
Well, the other thing is sometimes when you set a goal in the beginning, it looks a certain way on paper. Be flexible with yourself as far as like what you consider succeeding, what you consider success when it comes to the goal. Like, in other words, I'm not saying to like not create a check the box kind of a process, but like whatever boxes you're checking might look different over time, as opposed to this is 1,000 minutes do or die. It's like, well, this is 20 minutes as often as possible. When I turn around for the month, I got 20 minutes in 3 to 4, 5 times a week without thinking about it. Like, you don't have to be a type A'er or a hyper planner or super scheduled or super like, this is the way it was on paper and this is the way it needs to stay. You just, the process evolves over time as long as you keep doing the thing and you have something to work towards and you can look back and say, I did it.
Yep.
Whatever it is. And don't be afraid to look back and like literally feel some pride about it and remark about it. Not just reflect, but like actually look at it, like quantify it in some way and be like, wow, I did this thing. That feels good.
Yeah. Set those parameters. Like, what is the bare minimum? And like my client who's doing the yoga one, she did. It has to be 30 minutes. If it's longer, cool. But if it's less than 30 minutes, it doesn't count. In what year was it? 2017, 2016? I don't remember. One year I had a goal to read 52 novels in the year. And I did it. I did that, but 3 of those were Fear Street books. R.L. Stein's teenage series Fear Street books, because I was in a time crunch at the end. But one of them was Stephen King's It, which is like a 1,500 page book. So, I hadn't set up like, oh, it needs to be this many pages. I should have done that. But they were all technically novels. But my point is, like, when you set a goal like this, for example, we're talking about doing X amount of time blank. Stretching, doing yoga. Another one is getting outside. A lot of people I've seen do the 1,000 hours outside challenge for the year. With their whole families, I might add. Not just them, like the kids, everybody. And I think that is so cool. That meant, I assume, I'm not in their house, but I assume when it's nice outside, they spend a lot of time outside. And on days where it's probably really crappy outside, maybe they don't go outside at all. Maybe they just go outside for 15 minutes or something. I'm sure it just depends on a lot of factors. But when you have the opportunity to get ahead, you get ahead, because eventually something will come up. Something will always come up that will make things harder. Right now, I'm challenging myself to meditate every day, which, if you guys have listened to this podcast, is not something that I have been very successful with in the past. And I have not reaped all the benefits that people say come along with it. Some days that's 20 minutes. Some nights it's a 3-minute meditation before the clock strikes midnight. But I'm getting it in. So be flexible with yourself. But yeah, think about what could you spend X amount of time doing.
And then do it.
And then do it. I actually have a kind of fun one I'm thinking of setting up for the new year. I want to get 280 strength workouts in 2023, and I'm thinking of getting like a roll of tickets and like tearing a ticket off every time I do it.
Where are you going to put the tickets in?
I haven't decided yet. I'm not even 100% sure if I'm going to do it, but
can we have fun with this?
Yeah, maybe I can use the tickets, and like when I have a certain number of them, then I can like cash them in for prizes for myself or something. I don't know. Make it fun, guys.
Really?
I love goal setting. I think it's super, super fun. Next type of goal, fix X problem, physical problem. So if you have something going on in that bod of yours that is not right, make the doctor's appointment you need to make. Visit the physical therapist that you need to visit. Plan the body work that you need to get done to fix the problem. If you have knees that give you a really hard time, or you think something's wrong with your shoulder, like how long have you been putting off going to get that imaging done to see what's wrong with it? Those are really good goals to set for yourself. And so many people who are like devout gym goers and weightlifters will put this shit off until they literally cannot move that body part anymore. Don't do that. Make that the goal. If you haven't got blood work done in years, get it done. What if you're deficient in something and you didn't even know? Like, those are really good self-care goals that are not sexy, but can make a big, big difference in so many other areas of your life, including looking better,
Well, your health becoming compromised will take you out of the game, and then you'll be playing catch up on that if you don't know what you're dealing with.
Yep.
So, yeah, your annual and anything else that that's, you don't want to just chalk it up to age and decrepitude. These are dings and aches and pains that you accumulated along the way, and some of that requires some work outside of just powering through. Or eventually you see yourself out of the game for a couple weeks, or you wind up being subpar with your performance, with whatever you're doing, because you're not taking care of yourself. Heart rate. I like the heart rate one a lot, actually. Focusing on heart health in general. I think that's a fun one, honestly, because you can measure heart rate so easily these days with wearables or on cardio machines, or you can even count your breaths or just like feel how winded or not winded you are. It's a good feeling. It's a really good feel. Let's forget about the number. It's a really good feeling to like go out on a jog and not be winded after the fact, or be less winded than you once were because you're taking care of your heart health with some cardiovascular training. And let's face it, when it comes to us physique-minded athletes, we want to focus on hypertrophy. We want to be gym rats. And on the reels, we wind up skimping out on our cardiovascular health, which honestly, that does have good carryover.
Oh, yeah. And cardiovascular fitness, I feel like, improves so much more quickly than muscle strength and things like that. Like, you get payoff for doing cardio almost every single time you do it. You get a little bit better and a little bit fitter and a little bit fitter. So yeah, lowering your resting heart rate can be a good goal that you would do by way of doing certain types of cardio. I'm actually going to be working on increasing my heart rate variability this year, which is a whole separate topic that I didn't even know much about. It's we think of our heart rate as like, if it's 60 beats per minute, we think of it as like 1 beat every second, but it's not. Each beat is a little bit different. And believe it or not, the more different it is from beat to beat, the better, the healthier your heart is. I didn't know this. And then I looked at my heart rate variability on a chart and I was like, oh, I don't love that. If this is the worst and that is the best, not loving where mine is right now, assuming it's correct. I don't know. But so yeah, that's something I'm going to work on this year. Other things that you could work on, these ones don't really have categories, but you can improve your sleep, work on your sleep hygiene, work on, make the goal like getting in bed at the same time or waking up at the same time or not having screens or blah, blah, blah. Improve your sleep is a great goal that has carryover to literally every area of your life.
What about personal hygiene?
What about it?
I think that's something that slips when we get very busy with life.
Does it?
I think so.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, people jokingly are like, oh, I'm too busy to shower, for example. As embarrassing as that sounds, sometimes your personal hygiene does slip if you don't focus on it. Making sure that you wash your face and you take a shower, like stupid things. Stupid. No, it's true.
Hey.
I mean...
And if that's something someone struggles with, they should make a goal for it.
Well, then think about it. It's so easy to feel ashamed to even broach the subject. But honestly and truly, even those with like decent mental health most of the time, because they work on themselves, which no one has that. I mean, everyone struggles. You got to work on it. Like, it's easy for personal hygiene to slip when you get really busy in life. So that's a good thing to focus on, I think.
Sure.
Talk about.
Another one I have is improving your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity. This could be a step goal. This could be a move goal, like I'm going to stand up every hour that I'm at work, or I'm going to get this many minutes of movement per day. However you want to break it down, I think is great. I think pretty much everybody could stand to move a little more. But there is one goal for a very specific type of person that I think could be good, and it can be to rest more. There are some folks out there who just cannot stop. They don't stop. They train every day, strength or cardio, or they have no downtime whatsoever. Like setting a rest goal, like spend X amount of time resting, can be a great goal for somebody who really struggles with that. So, if that's you, maybe consider like setting a goal of I'm going to take one full rest day every week. That doesn't sound like enough to me, but if that's the position you're in, baby steps. That's where We're starting.
You can call it, we like to call it the active recovery day for those who are petrified of not moving.
Go for a walk.
Also, don't want to discourage you to not move. We don't want you to like be a sloth and lay in bed all day long. Although if that's what you choose to do, more power to you if you're active the other 6 days of the week. However, like you don't have to like, you're not obligated to just like sit
on
down.
The couch, yeah.
You can actively recover by moving your body in other ways that you're not going to cause fatigue and you are going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And it's all relative, right? You know, I said, oh, you can go for a walk. Well, if you're somebody who's been sedentary for years, going for a walk is the exercise, you know? But if you're somebody who beats the crap out of themselves for 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, going for a walk is a nice break from that. So everything is relative. Thus concludes my list of potential non-aesthetic fitness goals. And I want to, you know, if you're coming to the goal setting workshop, I'll go over this there, but I will touch upon it briefly here. Even though I'd probably listed like 30 goals or something here, you should not have 30 goals. You know, pick a couple and shoot for those.
And we can dig into the stuff that you're probably the most interested to in the goal setting workshop, like meal planning, nutrition habits, and stuff like that.
We'll talk more about categories than specifics, because how could you possibly have specific goals people should set to a room of 300 people? So, but you should still come. It's gonna be great. But if you don't come, please do not think I'm suggesting you should do all of these goals. I'm not. Pick a couple that really ring true to things that you want in life and focus on those. All right, Giacomo, moving on to our question and answer segment. These two questions come from the same person, but they are similar enough that I'm going to put them together. Are multivitamins unhealthy? And do you need to supplement with zinc?
I don't think there's anything inherently unhealthy about multivitamins, but I do recommend that you find a good one because it's easy to wind up using cheaper, less effective ingredients and then to put them into a multi. And the biggest culprits are vitamin B12 and vitamin D. You'll see multivitamins use the Cinnabase, the cyanocobalamin for B12 often because it's way cheaper, but you don't absorb it. You hardly absorb any of it. And you'll also see multivitamins, not as much as you used to, but you still see it sometimes where like they'll use D2 instead of D3, and D3 is way more absorbable, for example. Also, another interesting thing about multivitamins, I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but since we're on the topic of multivitamins, iron, sometimes you want it with, sometimes you want it without. So like there's kind of homework that you could do on multis to make sure you're getting a good quality one and the kind that you want, and where are the vitamins being sourced from, right? Some people prefer them being sourced from Whole Foods as opposed to synthetics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, just be careful because people can charge a lot of money for something that's crappy. I've seen it time and time again where I could find them a multi that's like half the price that actually has the right ingredients in them. B12, you want a methylcobalamin-based B12. And D, you want to make sure there's D3 in it, and vegan D3, obviously. And choose between an iron or iron-free multi based on your needs. And no, they're not, in my opinion, multivitamins make sure that you can round out it's like insurance. It's not a replacement for a nutrient-dense diet, if you will. However, it is insurance to make sure you're getting in all of your vitamins. What was the second question, Danny?
Do you need to take zinc?
I don't know that you need to per se, but from my limited understanding when it comes to zinc is that it is helpful for your endocrine system, specifically for testosterone production. And the recommendation is to take it in the morning and in the evening. And there's different kinds of zinc. Zinc citrate is the one to use. Don't take it on an empty stomach.
Yeah. Do not take zinc on an empty stomach.
You'll be sorry if you do.
Yeah.
This question is for you, Danny. What was your experience rehabbing your shoulder injury? What exercises did or didn't work?
Okay. So this is a very interesting question because my shoulder injury was not typical. This shoulder injury was the end of 2017 and lasted until basically the beginning of 2019. It was not a typical shoulder injury. It wasn't an impingement. It wasn't a rotator cuff problem. I had frozen shoulder or adhesive capsulitis, which is literally your shoulder capsule, for whatever reason, becomes so inflamed that it more or less turns to stone and can last anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And once it starts, there is nothing you can do to start it. The reason that it was so unusual, it's actually a pretty common condition, but it happens to a very specific subset of people. Elderly people, women specifically, diabetic people, people who had just come out of shoulder surgery, and people who have acute shoulder trauma. So like they fell on their shoulder, for example. The only one of those categories that I fit was I am a woman. I don't have, none of that other stuff happened. I did get Lyme disease like the summer beforehand, and I think that might have triggered some weird stuff that happened in my body. I don't know. But it hurt so bad, and for like 6 months, I mean, it hurt to the point of like crying in your sleep. And then when it froze, actually, which is when you can't move it at all, it doesn't hurt anymore by the time it freezes. So it's like less convenient because you can't move your arm, but it doesn't hurt, so that's good. But there, I did go to physical therapy, and they had me do a lot of trying to move it and try to manually manipulate it, and it did not, I do not think it helped at all. Like I tried to do anything that I could do with my shoulder, but there was so much I could not do with my shoulder. Eventually I had to get an injection. So first they did the injection just in the office, the wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of corticosteroid shot in your shoulder. That did nothing. Then I had to get a steroid, an anti-inflammatory shot under an x-ray where they put it directly into my capsule. And within a couple of hours, it started to loosen up a little bit. And it still took several. So what it did was it kind of triggered it into the thawing phase. So there's freezing phase, frozen phase, thawing phase. So that shot triggered it into the thawing phase, and it started to get better from there. It's totally healed now, but I only have about 90% of the range of motion back. I don't think I'll ever have that final 10% back. At this point, it doesn't stop me from doing anything. But I do have to stretch my shoulders. I am kind of a hypermobile person, so to have one shoulder that isn't as flexible could really set me up for an injury. So especially on that side, I have to stretch it a lot, like a lot, just to keep it where it is. So stretch my pecs, stretch my shoulders, and be very mindful of how I sleep on it. So I'm sorry that is not super helpful because it is so specific, but if anybody else is going through frozen shoulder, get the shot under injection and take a ton of omega-3s. Like literally, I took like probably 4 grams of Testa omega-3s, DHA, EPA, microalgae capsules every day. I wouldn't recommend taking more than that because it can cause your blood to like not clot properly. But that's how much I took because I wanted as much anti-inflammatory as possible. I also took turmeric and ginger, but I really think the omega-3s helped a lot. So that is my advice. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, topics you would like us to cover. You can hit the contact button at veganproteins.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Vegan Proteins and at Muscles by Brussels. And you can also join our free Muscles by Brussels Facebook group. We would love to have you there for some of those challenges. And if you haven't registered for the goal setting workshop, it's in the show notes. Sign up. We'll see you there January 10th. My name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon.